when I started climbing, which was early 70s, 74 in fact, in Yorkshire, first place I went to was Widdop, and then second place was Ilkley Quarry. It was all Livesey. And then Ron, and obviously Ron took it to a different level. I mean, I don't know whether you remember, there was this front cover of Crags magazine with a picture of Ron on Supersonic. And this was when, God, I can't remember what year it would be, dead early 80s, and it was just there, and there's Ron with these two massive fingers in these two-finger pockets. I mean, it's a bit of a slab, but it looked fantastic. He said, "Is this Britain's first 6C?" When, there's the occasional 6A, and it's just like, oh my God. So he definitely was at a different level, and everyone was just like, he's just doing everything. And for the first part of my climbing, like we were talking about before, it's goals, I just wanted to do everything that Ron did. So I wanted to do, Vision, Eye of the Tiger, just whatever it was. As soon as he'd done it, I just wanted to do it, and it was just a focus, And so if you could go around, you could do all of those things. That's the first. That was really the first sort of set of goals that I had. Really started with Sardine, and Sardine was probably about the same time that. You could probably look at a big guide, but I might be miles wrong. It felt to me like there were a few big routes around. Cave Route Right Hand, Sardine, and probably some others, but they seem like huge things. I mean, right now, what are they? 7A plus, 7B plus? Yeah. They're not incredibly hard, are they? But I mean, God, they just seem desperate. I mean, remember, you had Helly Hansen trousers and EBs on, and double rope and all that. It was a different world. The thing with free and aided routes is bolts all the way from, so you can clip them, can't you? Yeah. That's a huge thing. If you look at trying to do, I don't know, Sardine or Roosabus, because then we were not red pointing. You were doing things.
What was the style? Was it like yo-yoing? Was it?
It was yo-yoing, yeah. It was yo-yoing, and originally we yo-yoed without hang-dogging.
Right.
This is a sense. I remember doing Tequila Mockingbird, and I think that was probably the one of the last where I didn't do any dogging on. And it took 4 days and 10 falls. You'd climb up, clip something, fall off, sit, and you'd sit for an hour, 2 hours. So you'd have, 3-4 goes a day.
Yeah.
You climb up, you blow a sequence. Well, actually, you hadn't got to blow a sequence, had you? You had to be pretty good at it, because if you, and then you have to do another 2 moves, and then off you'd come. Which is quite interesting, actually, because when we first got into competitions, we just hung on like limpets, because we're all just right into on-site climbing, and the friends weren't, they were all into red pointing. So the very first competitions, the final was 7B plus, and we'd do them.
Yeah.
We'd always do 7B plus. Like you do in Tequila, you've got to do 7C plus, without,
of course.
Yeah.
You were fit from the
totally
fit.
Yeah, totally fit. Yeah. And that move from, yo-yoing, dogging, through to red pointing just made the difference. And I think what took me to red pointing was meeting up with all the French guys, Jean-Baptiste Tribut, the Menestral brothers, Laurent Jacob, Fabrice Guillot, all of these guys, meeting up with them, and that's what took us into red pointing. The first real red point thing in the UK was Revelations,
right?
Which was a revelation in a couple of ways. First of all, the first move was super hard. It just seemed at the time when Jerry did it, it just seemed impossibly hard. And there's very few people could do it. I think maybe a couple. I don't know whether Tim Freeman could maybe do the move. I know I certainly couldn't, and lots of other good climbers. Andy or Chris or whatever couldn't do it. So from that point of view, it was a bit of a revelation. But also from the style of doing it, not having done the first move but practiced the top.
Right.
It's just like, whoa, it was completely different.
Sheffield to climb or to go to university?
Moved to Sheffield to go to university, but chose it because of climbing basically, and had been coming down here a little bit anyway. Before then, I'd sort of been climbing in Yorkshire, came from up there, Yorkshire and the Lakes, and then I got in with a few people that had been coming down to the peak. I'd been coming down to the peak, then came to, it was a polytechnic then, so I came and did a course. I only did 2 years of the course because it was a sandwich course, and it was mine surveying, and I got a job, and the job was in South Africa, so I decided not to do it. So that was it. So I stopped studying, went on the Enterprise Allowance Scheme, which was a fantastic Maggie Thatcher sort of get people off the dole, you know, but not into work, as it were. Still, you know, off the benefit figures. You know, it was Maggie Thatcher's Britain. So you signed on every other week. You could sign on by post.
I'm completely bloody sick of this!
Yeah, we lived at Hunter House Road, 84 Hunter House Road. That was the house. There's another one up the road, 124, which I think Jerry alludes to in his book, which was a bit of a health and safety hazard, and that's where Smeg and all those, and Chipper and all sorts of people lived. But 84 was interesting, because I think Neil Foster moved in first, and then these two girls, I remember them well, Sally and Alison, they moved out, and then I think Gore moved in, and Andy and Jerry and myself, and it was just like a 70s.
What year would it have
It was 84,
right, okay.
1984, 84 Hunt House Road.
Right, okay.
Chris and I went to Buttes, and we had a couple of months at Buttes. It might have been a couple of months, I don't know, it would have been tied into signing on, that's for sure. You know, you'd have had a holiday form and then one postal you know, and you'd get a long trip, and we'd met the French down there, and we'd gone down there and just climbed in our style, which is basically yo-yoing, and we got up to about 7C, 7C plus, so we'd done stuff like I think possibly the hardest thing we did was Fissure Surge, which was bloody desperate actually. On that very trip when we went, the hardest routes in the country at the time were Rebden Papillon 8A, Diagonal de Fou 8A, Salton Polycarp at Verdun, Géant Jones 8A at Salève, and others, you know, Orange Mécanique. Those were the hard routes, which is amazing now, isn't it?
Yeah,
I mean, can you imagine that's the hardest route in France? I mean, that's incredible. On my second trip, I mean, that was a grade I could climb at 8A, long 8As like that, 'cause they're not very hard, are they? You know, we weren't bouldering very much.
Yeah.
You know, I could do them, and there's I remember, because I went back out again, because I could speak French, so I got on with them better than most people, and travelled back down the south of Gibet, and spent time there. Then went back again the next year, and I remember there was a list in Vertical of all the 8As that people had done, like Ed Longer's done 12, you know, Antoine's done 8, you know, and Gibet's done 14, because he just climbed more than anyone else. And I looked at that, and if I'd been on there, I'd been second on the list. And we'd done the 8As, so I was like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, we'd been to France and seen what had happened there, climbed with the French and got into red pointing, and then you go from 7C to 8A, 8A plus, done, you know, 8A pluses, and then almost for me the focus of the thing was to go to France and climb there. You know, there's stuff like Shuka, which is 8B and stuff like that, which are the, you know, it was all new and happening then. I mean. I guess for people, because Buttes is not so popular now, but I remember being on the plateau one time, you know, dossing with the French there, and Mark saying, I found a new route. Well, he said, I have found a new route. Come and think. And we walked round under no man's land, which I don't know if you know it. It's this massive, massive wall. When you go around the corner, you end up at Boudemont, and nobody had ever been round there. You know, you were like fighting your way through trees and stuff. There was no path. And we came out underneath and just looked up at Shuka, which now I've been back and it just looks tiny. Yeah. But at the time, you just look up at that and you kind of turn around, just see this thing disappearing out. And Mark says, yeah, I'm trying that. The first 7 moves are with no feet, and then there is a double this, and it just seemed like an incredible thing. It was unbelievable time, you know, just to go to Boudemont. Anyway, so we got to that. So there's 8Bs happening with Shuka and all that sort of stuff. And I think Mecca came up. I'd sort of there must have been some conversation somewhere in some tent in the south of France, sort of moaning about how great France was and how, you know, gap filling in the UK is not the same. And Gibet just said, "Oh, you should just climb something in the middle of Raven Tour. There's just loads of space there."
Was it a free for all? Could anyone try any project, or was it?
No. In those days, you had a project, and if it was your project, people steered clear. I mean, there might be a few notable exceptions, unless, of course, it went on forever. Now, I'm thinking probably Mecca went on for so long that some people might have thought it was open, but nobody did, which was great.
Did it go on for so long?
Yeah, it went on for 2 years, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, it went on for 2 years. First year, I mean, it seems really odd now, but like then, for me, because I didn't do incredibly hard moves, I wasn't a very, very good boulderer. I could sort of climb, medium grade stuff, but a lot, so I wasn't very powerful or anything. Or didn't have very strong fingers. So for me, Mecca at the time, the moves were really hard. So the first time I went on it, it just seemed like, Christ, these are incredibly difficult moves. Like the bottom just seemed really, really hard. So the first year, it takes a bit of time to get going with something like that, doesn't it? And the original intention was always just to go all the way to the top.
Yeah.
But with the first half taking 2 years and only having like a week, it wasn't going to happen. I could do the top because it's not as hard as the bottom, but to link it all obviously is a different proposition. But no, the first year I tried it a bit, and I couldn't even do it over like a half or anything like that. So I was a long, long way from it, and then got more into bouldering basically, and spent a lot of time bouldering, and mainly bouldering at Raven Tour, and just got strong like that. And at the time when I did it, I was bouldering more than I had ever done. I could do power band there and back and stuff like that, which it's a long time ago. It's reasonably hard. I just got very strong. Eventually, you just get strong enough to do it, don't you? Yeah. And so eventually, I did do it. Basically. Well, I was really trying to red point. I was running out of time because I'd accepted this job at Mammoth.
Yeah.
And I'd been travelling a lot. I'd been in the States that year. I got married in February. Went to the States after that. Came back, and then I probably had a couple of months to do it, and just got really focused on it. Just really want to do it before I go. And it just seemed like I was going to do it. I was fit, I was strong, I was climbing well, I wasn't doing anything else, I was bouldering a lot. And several times I climbed right up to the top of the groove, that sort of sloping thing that you reach out for the crimps on. Mm-hmm. Just really strong, it's not a problem, you don't feel anything, you get that and just go, bang off, just like, no, how can that be? No. So it just went on and on and on. And in the end, I did it literally the day before I left for Switzerland.
Of course, it does say that in the guide, and that's the kind of detail that you pour over to a certain extent. I always wondered what that story was, and obviously
it's absolute fact. And in the end, I probably just got a bit stressed out by it. You know how these things are, and I distinctly remember certain aspects of that day, and going down there and just sort of having it in my mind, just going, got to do it, and then probably just being psyched out by it. And we ended up just having this enormous bouldering session, and there's loads of people down there and just doing loads of stuff and just feeling really strong, but just bouldering for like hours until it was just like, almost couldn't even look at it. And then somebody said, come on, have a go then. It's just tying on, just doing it. It was incredible. You just wouldn't have bouldered that much. It was just ridiculous to. And I think maybe having just done so much and it just got so ridiculous, you just kind of, all the tension goes and you do, and it was just perfect.
Good.
Yeah.
And I can look at myself sitting there under the thing, enjoying myself, feeling nice and nervous, feel great.
There was loads of people there, and
obviously they knew what your story was. With
they knew the whole story. Yeah, there's Zippy and Ben, and there's loads of other people. I can't quite remember, but it was just generally good. It was just generally good. I think everyone was genuinely happy and pleased. I certainly was. I know my wife certainly was. It's just like, Christ, at last. So yeah, it was just really, really, really good. Yeah.
And so no one else.
So no one else was on it. No one else was on it. And I sort of half have a feeling that was. I mean, it's not really respect, but people knew I was on it, and I guess they thought I was going to do it, and they stepped back, which is great, and I'm so appreciative.
Yeah, because
definitely.
in '88, presumably, I don't know, Ben. Or
they were climbing hard. Ben and Jerry were climbing hard for me. They could have done it. Yeah, and a couple of others could have had a good go at it. That's for sure. It's funny stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, there's a whole different series of things that come into play that can make a difference between, well, success or failure. And it is incredible, you know, physiological conditions, you know, the mental thing about it is just so important, you know, and I think really, truly fantastic performance is just getting all of those things together. Quite what the weighting is, how much is physiological, how much is psychological, etc., you know, how much is the social environment, I don't quite know, but it certainly is the case that there can be fantastic performances beyond the norm by things coming together.
This was my approach this year. I kind of realised I had a go. It was not very good conditions, and I didn't get to my high point again.
Yeah.
And I kind of think, and it's that thing where I think actually there are, so, like you've just described, there's so many different variables, especially you know, in my life now.
Yeah.
I try to just not put too much pressure on myself and say, look, I live in London.
I mean, Mecca's an interesting thing anyway, and it struck me quite often, if you work for such a long time on a thing, it becomes boring.
Yeah.
And it becomes not motivating, and it's not good. It just struck me, you could go down Remington, you could do some bouldering, you know, working on, you know, Ben's roof, or on, you know, power band, blue band, all sorts of different combinations, which, you know, in those days it was just making you stronger, making you a lot better. And then you could go and work on Mecca, and it was just very, very enjoyable. And there's no doubt, even if you're not getting as high as you were before, it's a worthwhile thing. It's making you stronger. You're getting familiar with everything. You're refining how you do things.
Yeah.
And it just never ever got to the point for me where it was just like, oh, I can't do this. It's just getting on top of me. It's no good. It was just always. It was great, and that is part of the route. It is accessible, it is there, and it is enjoyable. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't split your skin on that something here, there, or everywhere, and it is. It's just very, very. It's just great.
So did you grade it? How did that?
No, I just left.
Right.
I went to Switzerland. I think. I can't really remember, to be honest.
Yeah. So
I think I just left to Switzerland.
Yeah, I suppose it's AB plus.
It's AB plus.
At
I think
the time,
everyone knew.
Right, okay.
It just was AB+.
That was what it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because I think it says in the guide that it was the hardest route in the country at the time.
Well, I mean that serves purposes, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It was supposed to be the first AB+. I think Sleechy did Cry Freedom first, didn't he? I think.
Right.
I think that's the honest answer to that. But it's always fun to say Mecca's the first AB+, because it makes him angry.
It's always had like a big reputation as being like a super benchmark. A lot of people make it their first 8B+, and quite a lot of people it's their only 8B+.
Yeah,
so it's just basically it's a benchmark, and in Britain it's probably the benchmark 8B+. Yeah. Possibly because there's not many others, possibly because it's really accessible, but I mean it is a really good route as well, and it's got really varied climbing. It's no soft touch. If you get up it, you've done the grade, end of story.
I think Mark is very much like me. He wasn't quite, you know, the prodigious talent that Ben or Jerry were, but he just worked really hard, and therefore did the hardest route in Britain. You know, and good luck to him. That's all part of it, isn't it?
Of course, yeah. It does also go on to talk about the extension. When you said that you.
I'd basically done it, yeah. It's obvious, isn't it? You do Mecca, you want to carry on, really, don't you? I mean, I'd always intended not to go left of the flake. I didn't intend to go straight up from you get the sloper, and then instead of going out there, you can just keep going. There's a couple of hard moves, and then you're up on the face.
It's 8C plus.
Is it?
Yeah.
If you go straight up the groove,
yeah.
It's 8C plus. Oh, that would have been too hard then, wouldn't it? That would have been another 3 years.
I think I remember climbing Mecca, and I didn't have any interest in going any higher at the time. I went through some of the other routes, and then it just became a really glaring, obvious gap. You know, looking at the climb itself, it obviously finishes halfway up. I think I was pretty attracted to it because it looked like my sort of style. It's pretty vertical, it's pretty crimpy, I had a look to see what it was like, and it is actually alright. It's not as hard as people say. It's just a matter of having a rest before you set off. The thing is, because Mecca's such a good route, it's a really good training route as well. I've ended up climbing it a lot of times, so you kind of see the other opportunities, and this is a crag that I've done a lot of different stuff on. It's just a matter of finding something new, and they're all good quality variations. Kabar's the hardest one, because it's just like a real direct. It's probably the best and the most direct of the routes. In fact, it's definitely the most direct. That's the one everyone should try and do, really.
That was my intention originally. And then I got so involved with the lower bit and not getting up it that it just became obvious that, I wasn't going to happen. Oh, that's funny.
Were you surprised it took 10 years, I think, for maybe the extension? Or have you not thought about that?
Yeah, that does surprise me. It surprised me it took so long for people to do it. It's just there, isn't it? It's Raventhour. It's one of the most fantastic routes ever. You just want to just get straight on it and just do it, wouldn't you? Why not?
Because, well, I mean, I suppose, Mecca being your route, Ben and Jerry, other people who were capable, maybe just weren't interested. I mean,
don't understand that.
Jerry did Evolution, which is harder, and that was his route,
Yeah, I don't understand that though. I mean, for me, it's you go around, you snap them all up, don't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
And that's absolutely what Steve's done.
Yeah.
Which makes sense. You can understand it. Partly just, I guess, because he ran out of things to do.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's a bit of a lone figure, isn't he? Climbing at that grade, doing those new routes. No, I mean, he's fantastic.
Well,
I mean, and it is a shame. I mean, I don't know whether it is a shame. I mean, I'm not in the scene as much as I should be, but it just seems like he's fully world-class performer. It just seems a bit stuck here, where it just doesn't seem to be happening, does it? It's really funny. I remember sat under Revelations, and there was probably me, Gore, and a couple of other lads, and we'd all driven out on our motorbikes. They were all parked in the lay-by there, and this car came past with two heads peering out, and it carried on. Turned around, came back, and then this American boy said, "Is this Raventhour?" And it was Chris Grover and Alan Watts, and they'd just come. I don't know if you remember, you were climbing when Smith Rock had just hit. Right. And there's this picture of Alan Watts on chain reaction on the front of the mountain, and it's just, sun-kissed, overhanging, sharp, beautiful array. It's just, climbing not in the Raventhour model. These guys had flown from Smith Rocks to, Manchester to go climb on Raventhour, and they'd driven past it because they just thought it was just too ugly.
Well, I'm really glad you told that story, because I've heard that, rumour.
Yeah.
And it was described as being like that it was Jibe who'd done that.
Right. No, it was Alan Watts and Chris Grover.
Right.
Alan Watts, who's the guru of Smith Rock.
Yeah. Does the name come from the aid route?
Yeah, it's Mecca.
Is it?
Yeah.
See, because that's something that I was going to, and the midlife crisis part of it.
That was just a bit of a flippant joke from, shall I take this job or not?
Right.
That was that.
Because you weren't old enough to be having a midlife crisis.
As in no midlife crisis. At that, I'd been offered this job in Switzerland at Mamu, and should I take it?
And it was a choice between being in Sheffield and climbing all the time.
It was. Clearly, I was climbing better than I'd ever climbed then. I was climbing, good. I was climbing, competitions were good. I was strong. Going rock master, stuff like that. I mean, right at the end then, when I was getting close to doing Mecca, we had one weekend in Pentruin, and it was just great just to have a break from it. And I did Muscle Beach first go. Just looked at it, just did it, which I did 70 plus 18.
Yeah.
And it wasn't on site because somebody had just done it, but otherwise, so it's like, wow, that's good. I was doing well in the competitions, stronger than ever, and just like, God, this is the wrong time to stop. Really the wrong time to stop. But it just struck me, how old was I then? 26, which is not very old, is it? But it was just offered this job at Mamu as export salesman, and my boss was Kim Carrigan, who was an Australian, it was obvious he would leave and go back to Australia, and if it was obvious if I was any good, I'd be export manager for Marriott, and at that point you sort of made, don't you? Yeah. So I went, shall I be a rep for Berghaus, or shall I be the export manager of Marriott? I said, okay, I'll do that. So that's what happened.
Yeah.
And actually it all panned out right, but I mean still there's just that little thing, Christ, you know, another 2 years, 3 years climbing.
I'll bring it back in. Yeah. Come on. Fantastic! Give us a smile at least, come on.
I felt weak. Pulled leg is so hard. When I got that one, my hand went dead. You know, my fingers just went dead. And I just went,
Yes.
what? Cheers, man. Cheers.